Hello, it's Philip Carr-Gomm. There's a little button I can press that makes my life much easier. Here we go. There, hi, lovely to see you. So here we are. It's Tea with a Druid number 90. Do say if you can hear me and see me, and say where you're from. It'll be great to see you. Who's first? Daniel from Germany. Hello, Daniel. Great, lovely to see you. And Andre from the Netherlands. Great, welcome on this autumn evening. And Eva from Switzerland and Brian from Michigan. Lovely to see you. And Adi from New Zealand, from the other side of the world, where Adi's just waking up. That's fantastic. Great. Denmark, we have Vibs from Denmark and Vivian from North Germany. Fantastic. Lovely to see you all. So these are times where we can be together wherever we are in the world, and just to think about things that we care about and that are important to us. And we were exploring over these few sessions the triad that I suggested a few weeks back, which is 3 sources of comfort: knowledge of the divine origin of all creation, the one source of all being; inspiration of the teachings of mystics and sages; and support in the fellowship of like-minded souls. And last week we looked at the power of community and the importance of community, the level of support it gives. And the focus of this triad is really, I think, particularly relevant at this time we're living through at the moment, where the world seems so turbulent that we have to make a little bit of an extra effort to find stability and calm within. And this triad certainly helps me to do that. Knowing that I'm in contact with people like you around the world, members of the order, people interested in Druidry, people interested in spirituality, people of goodwill all over the world. That gives me a source of strength and comfort. And I widen that circle of community to the community of all beings, of nature, of the animals and the trees and the plants. But what about the teachings, spiritual teachings? Let's spend the evening, our time together, looking at that, and then we can have a meditation around that as well. We have Crow from Mexico. That's fantastic. And Jane from South Carolina. Fantastic. And Pat in Ulster. Hello, Pat. So teachings. The first thing I think that comes to mind when one talks about spiritual teachings is it's quite natural to fall into a position of perceiving this as being passive. I receive these teachings. It places me in a position which is called in Gestalt the underdog. I'm the underdog, and there's the top dog, which is the book, the person giving the teaching. In another sense, it's like being a child in relationship to a parent. But if you look at what's going on really, or what should be going perhaps on, is education. And the key we can discover is in the etymology of the word education. It comes from 2 Latin words, educere, meaning out, and ducere, lead or guide, so lead out. So education should be leading out, helping people to discover from within, to bring it out into their consciousness. And that's the best kind of learning. When you go to a workshop, you can go to a workshop where the presenter just gives you a whole load of facts that you're supposed to absorb. And another presenter actually asks you key questions that trigger a process in your mind, and you come to the conclusions and discover things yourself, which probably the workshop leader knew and could have simply presented to you. But it's always more effective if you can discover it yourself with the help of an educator, somebody who leads you out. So then the process of being in relationship to teachings becomes empowering rather than disempowering. Teachings become a vehicle to trigger your own realizations, your own inner growth, your own understanding. And you know that very familiar feeling of when something really strikes home, you sort of knew it already. You just needed that person to say it in that particular way on that particular day for you to realize that you actually knew that already. And so, and of course, the best way to do that is in the form of a conversation. I mean, I wish the technology was great enough for us all. I mean, I've tried with webinars and it's kind of awful because broadband bandwidth doesn't work really. You know, where we could all be actually talking, which is why I love doing retreats and workshops where we can sit together and we can engage in the art of conversation, where we can converse together and exchange and share. So, okay, so I think that's, for me, when I think of spiritual teachings, I don't think of myself becoming just a receptive vessel. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I think it's nice to just receive. But I see it more often, excuse me, more often as a process of me engaging with the material to discover the illumination that it can provide for me. So, okay, so let's ask ourselves, what are the vehicles for what we're calling spiritual teachings? Well, I think one list you could make straight away is you could say, spiritual teachings come to me through texts, words in some form, through people and through places. And there's an obvious way in which these teachings are transferred. You read a text that you understand and it provides clarity and insight, triggers a growth process in you perhaps. That's an obvious way. And the experience of being in conversation with somebody who draws you out of yourself, who has a stimulating conversation with you that inspires you in some way and helps you and supports you. Or you go to a place that inspires you and somehow brings you some sort of sense of illumination. And of course, that's the function of sacred places. So these are the obvious ways that these three vehicles of teachings work. The vehicles of the word, the person, the place. But there are subtle ways in which they can reach us too, and subtle levels of meaning. So let's think of these three things. Let's think of texts, for instance, or words, spiritual teachings as expressed in words. Well, one of the things we do in the distance learning course of the Order is we try to use brevity, briefness. We don't send masses and masses of stuff. The teaching is delivered in small texts called gwersi, which is the Welsh for a ray of sunshine, and also a lesson, an interesting reflection on what teaching is doing, warming you and illuminating you. So it's sent in these brief texts, and the idea is to read them, of course, but absorb them and meditate on them and work with them. The monks developed from many centuries ago the concept of Lectio Divina, which was taking small sections of text, usually, of course, in Christian terms, the Bible, small sections of spiritual teachings, and then reading them, absorbing whatever intellectual content is in there, but then going into a state of meditation to try to go deeper with it. Just as you might with a tarot card, take a tarot card or an animal oracle or plant oracle card and look at it and kind of enter into the scene. So with spiritual teachings, you can attempt to enter into the scene in order to make it really living and vibrant. You might find yourself drawn to even using some of the words in a mantra-like way. Say you were reading a poem of Rumi, and he evokes a particular scene, looking for the lover at dawn, and there you've got a scene. You can imagine the sun rising, and you're going out of your house with that yearning in your heart, and you enter into it like you would enter into the image of a major arcana of the tarot, entering into it. And then you might take the phrase yearning for the lover at dawn, or whatever it is, and just repeat it gently to yourself, allowing to let its meaning sink in deeper. So, okay, how would you access the subtle levels of teaching available when being in relationship with another person? Well, I think we've all experienced that, which is when we allow ourselves to sit in communion with them, in silence with them, where we go deeper than the sort of surface flow of conversation, and we share our innermost thoughts and feelings. We revive the art of conversation, which the American transcendentalists were so keen on doing. And then we can ask ourselves, how do we access the subtler levels of teaching that the land can give us? And here there's that beautiful concept that's articulated in the Tantric Buddhist tradition of Dharma teachings, which is this idea that teachings can be hidden, either literally physically, like manuscripts or statues or objects hidden in the ground, or at a subtler level where teachings are sometimes hidden. The island of Iona in Scotland, the Isle of the Druids as it used to be called, is the place where I have come across this most strongly, and also in the 7 lakes of Rila in Bulgaria, where you sit, and on Dinas Emrys in Wales. I have there actually a number of places where you sit, and if you just open yourself, it's as if you're being taught, not in my experience in an intellectual way of kind of hearing voices or teachings or making contact necessarily with any inner guides, but just some profound experiences and energies are being transmitted in this very fine and subtle way that is somehow inspiring me and illumining me and making me feel as if I'm growing and developing spiritually and healing too. And that's, I think, why sacred places exist, or one of the reasons why sacred places exist, to somehow act as repositories of spiritual teachings. So this is great to know. It doesn't, so spiritual teachings in my understanding doesn't just mean reading sacred texts or listening to people talking about spiritual things. It means being in places of power and beauty, spending time with people who are wise and loving, and engaging with words that convey spiritual teachings. And let's now, for our meditation, let's take that idea of spiritual teachings being contained in a place or emanating from a place. And let's just do a meditation of a few minutes. And as always, you can take this technique and use it in a much more extended way on your own. But for the purposes of these broadcasts that reach lots of people, that are available to anybody, they're brief, but hopefully helpful. So if you feel like doing this, you might want to close your eyes to better concentrate on yourself. Just becoming aware of being seated in front of your screen. And you can allow that awareness of being seated in front of the screen, but at the same time, you can also start to open to another level of awareness, in which you sense yourself seated on the shore. The sea is lapping gently on the strand. There's a canoe or a boat waiting to take you to an island that isn't very far away. You can see it just across the water there. And you know and sense that this is a sacred island. And if it feels right for you, you climb, and you don't have to go. You can sit and just contemplate this island from the safety of the shore, or you can make this boat journey across. You can get into the boat, and you see there some oars, and you just row yourself across the calm water, just rowing across the water until very soon you sense the keel of the boat just reaching the sand. And it's warm, so you don't mind getting out and getting your feet wet as you pull the boat up onto the sand, making sure it's safe there. And then coming to this island. And the first thing you do is you just kneel and place your hands on the earth, on the rock, on the sand, just placing your hands, just greeting the land. You give your love to this place, and you thank this place and the spirit of this place for allowing you to be there. And there's this very comfortable spot just there where you decide to sit. And your purpose is just to tune in to the spirit of this land. And so you close your inner psychic eyes and you open to the land beneath you. You feel the earth, you feel the minerals, the rocks, the soil. You sense the plants and trees around you too. And you become aware of the sky. The sky is wide here. The energy of the sky flows into you, meeting the energy of the earth within the center of your being. And you breathe in, and you can breathe in the sea air. And as you breathe in the sea air, you can feel or sense how this is an island of healing. An island of peace, of stillness. And you just gently breathe in and breathe out, breathing in the smell of the sea air. And you sense how people have lived here in the distant past as hermits, communing with the stars. And the night sky comes out now in all its beauty, and you can see all the stars above. And you see the moonlight on the water. And filled with energy of the stars, it's as if time speeds up and it's dawn again. And the sunlight is now playing on the water. And you take your leave of the island. You give thanks to the spirit of the island. And you get into your little boat. Having pushed it off, you climb in. And you start rowing towards the shore, across the sound. And soon the boat reaches the other side. You can feel the keel against the rocks and the sand. You climb out, you pull the boat up, and you sit down and you look at the island. This little holy island, this sacred island in the sea. And you close your eyes and you give thanks. As you close your eyes, you smell the sea again. And gradually feeling calm and at peace, the scene slowly begins to fade as you become aware of being seated in front of your screen, fully present in the here and now. And when you feel ready, you open your eyes. So, lovely. I was just reading while we all came back. I was just reading the few notes, and it's nice to hear Victor is saying it. That he had this experience in Brocéliande. Yes, that's one of those places in the forest in Brittany where you can feel that it's a place of teaching too. And so I hope you enjoyed that meditation. It was very brief. I'm conscious of that. But it's a technique you can use. Basically, you go into a state of relaxation and then travel in your mind to a place that perhaps you visited, such as Brocéliande for Victor, or Iona, or one of the wonderful Scottish islands, or a mountaintop, or wherever you feel inspired. And just ask to experience the teaching that this land can give you. And here's the trick that always, I think one has to perform in meditation, which is you set an intention, but you have no attachment to the outcome. Because if you're trying in your mind to try and get something, it's going to be harder. So you set your intention, you arrive at the place. That's why I like putting my hands, imagining my hands touching a place. So if I'm physically somewhere, I touch the place. You make this sort of physical contact and then ask, please may I receive some healing, some inspiration, some teachings, and then let go of your attachment to getting something. Angelica says that it seems that the silence of the island in this place is a good teacher too. Absolutely. The silence in sacred places. Joni imagined she'd finally made it to Iona. That's lovely. So thank you for being together. And next week, let's explore the first principle, the idea of the one source of all being. And have a beautiful rest of the evening or day for AD and people like him on the other side of the world, and a wonderful week. And I'll see you again next week. Okay, lots of love. Bye.